The wind howled through the pines, a low moan that seemed to carry whispers of the forest's secrets. Clara adjusted her scarf, pulling it tighter against the late autumn chill. The trail to Blackthorn Hollow was overgrown, barely visible beneath a carpet of fallen leaves. She hadn't been back to her hometown in years, not since she was a teenager, when the stories about the hollow were just campfire tales meant to scare kids. But now, at 32, with her mother's cryptic letter burning a hole in her backpack, Clara felt an unshakable pull to return. "Come home, Clara. It's awake again." The words were scrawled in her mother's shaky hand, the ink smudged as if written in haste. No explanation, no context, just those 7 words and an old map of the forest, with a single red X marking a spot deep in Blackthorn Hollow. Clara's mother had always been eccentric, prone to cryptic pronouncements about the old ways and the town's history. But this felt different. Urgent. Final. Clara's boots crunched on the frost-covered ground as she pushed deeper into the woods. The trees grew denser, their gnarled branches knitting together overhead, blocking out the gray sky. Her phone had no signal out here, and the GPS had stopped working an hour ago. She relied on the map, its faded lines barely legible. The X was close now, maybe a mile away, near the old quarry that had been abandoned since before she was born. The stories about Blackthorn Hollow were vague but persistent. People said the quarry wasn't just a hole in the ground, it was a door. To what? No one agreed. Some said it led to a forgotten mine where workers had vanished in the 1800s. Others claimed it was a gate to something older, something that didn't belong to this world. Clara had laughed off the tales as a kid, but the memory of her mother's hushed warnings, "Never go near the hollow, Clara. It listens," made her stomach twist now. A twig snapped behind her. Clara froze, her breath catching in her throat. She turned slowly, scanning the trees. Nothing. Just the wind, she told herself, but her heart pounded. She tightened her grip on the map and kept moving, faster now. The air grew heavier, the scent of damp earth mingling with something sharper, like rust or blood. The quarry appeared suddenly, a jagged scar in the forest floor. It was wider than she'd expected, at least 100 yards across, its edges crumbling into a pit so deep the bottom was lost in shadow. Clara stood at the rim, her breath misting in the cold. The map's red X marked this exact spot, but there was nothing here, just loose stones and a faint, rhythmic hum that seemed to pulse from the depths. She crouched, peering over the edge. The hum grew louder, vibrating in her chest. It wasn't mechanical, not like a machine. It was alive, like a heartbeat. Clara's mouth went dry. She should leave. Every instinct screamed it. But her mother's letter, the urgency in those words, "It's awake again," kept her rooted. A loose rock shifted under her foot, tumbling into the quarry. It fell silently, swallowed by the darkness. Then, a sound, a low, guttural scrape, like something massive shifting below. Clara stumbled back, her pulse racing. The hum intensified, and now she could hear whispers woven into it, faint and unintelligible, like voices speaking just out of earshot. She pulled the letter from her backpack, rereading it for the 100th time. Below the main text, in smaller, shakier script, her mother had added, "Find the stone. Break it." Clara frowned. What stone? There were thousands of rocks scattered around the quarry's edge, none distinct. She scanned the ground, her eyes catching on a slab half buried in the dirt. It was smooth, unnaturally so, and etched with faint, spiraling symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Clara knelt beside it, brushing away leaves. The stone was warm to the touch, despite the freezing air. The symbols pulsed faintly, as if alive. She hesitated, then pulled a hammer from her backpack, one of her mother's old tools, included with the letter. She raised it, her hands trembling, and brought it down. The stone cracked with a sound like a gunshot. The hum stopped abruptly, replaced by a deafening silence. Clara's ears rang. Then, from the quarry's depths, a scream tore through the air, not human, not animal, but something else entirely. It was raw, primal, a sound that clawed at her mind. She dropped the hammer, scrambling back as the ground trembled. A shadow moved in the pit. Not a shape, not a form, just a darkness that seemed to ride, climbing the quarry walls. Clara's breath hitched. She turned to run, but the ground beneath her buckled, sending her sprawling. The air grew thick, heavy with that same rust-blood smell. The whispers returned, louder now, overlapping in a cacophony of voices. They weren't speaking English, but she understood fragments. "You broke it, you woke it, you belong to it now." Clara clawed at the dirt, dragging herself toward the trees. The darkness surged upward, spilling over the quarry's edge like ink. It didn't move like a liquid or a gas. It moved with purpose, curling toward her. She screamed, her voice swallowed by the forest. The darkness touched her ankle, cold and slick, and her skin burned where it made contact. She kicked free, stumbling to her feet, and ran. Branches tore at her face as she crashed through the forest. The whispers followed, now inside her head, sharp and insistent. "You can't leave. It sees you." Her legs burned, her lungs ached, but she didn't stop. The map was gone, dropped somewhere in her panic, but she didn't care. She just needed to get away. The trees began to thin, and Clara burst into a clearing. Her heart sank. It was the quarry again. She'd run in a circle. The darkness was there, waiting, pooling at the center of the pit like a living thing. It pulsed, growing larger, its edges reaching toward her. Clara's knees buckled. She fell to the ground, sobbing, her mind fraying under the weight of the whispers. Then she saw it, a figure standing at the quarry's edge, cloaked in shadow. It was human-shaped but wrong, its limbs too long, its movements jerky, like a puppet on frayed strings. It turned its head, and Clara saw its face, or lack of one. Where eyes and mouth should have been, there was only smooth, pale skin, like a mask carved from bone. She screamed again, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching, as the darkness crept closer. Clara's mind raced. The stone. Her mother's letter. Break it. Had she made it worse? Had breaking the stone unleashed this thing? The figure raised a hand, pointing at her. The whispers surged, a single word repeating. "Mine!" The darkness lunged, wrapping around her legs, her waist, her chest. It was cold, so cold it burned, and it pulled her toward the quarry's edge. Clara clawed at the ground, her fingers digging into the dirt, but it was no use. The darkness was too strong. As she was dragged toward the pit, memories flooded her. Her mother's warnings, the stories, the way the townsfolk avoided the hollow. She saw her mother's face, pale and frantic, the night Clara left for college. "It's not just a story, Clara. It's real. And it's waiting." Why hadn't she listened? The edge was inches away now. Clara's hands scraped against the stone, her nails tearing. She felt the void below, vast and endless, pulling at her soul. The faceless figure watched, unmoving, as the darkness swallowed her. Clara woke gasping, her body drenched in sweat. She was in her apartment, the city skyline visible through the window. A dream. Just a dream. Her heart slowed, relief washing over her. She laughed shakily, running a hand through her hair. The letter, the quarry, the darkness, it was all in her head. But then she saw it. On her nightstand, folded neatly, was the map. The red X glared up at her, the ink still wet. Her mother's letter lay beside it, the words slightly different. "You didn't break it. Try again." Clara's scream caught in her throat. The air grew heavy, the rust-blood smell filling the room. From the shadows in the corner, a low hum began to rise. The days that followed were a blur of dread. Clara didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the quarry, the faceless figure, the darkness reaching for her. The map and letter remained on her nightstand untouched. She tried throwing them away, burning them, but they always reappeared, pristine and waiting. She called her mother, but the line was dead. She drove to her hometown, only to find her mother's house empty, the furniture covered in dust as if no one had lived there for years. The townsfolk avoided her questions, their eyes darting nervously when she mentioned Blackthorn Hollow. Clara knew she had to go back. She couldn't explain why, but the pull was stronger now, like a hook lodged in her chest. She packed her bag, the hammer heavier in her hands than before, and returned to the forest. The quarry was waiting. The stone was there, uncracked, as if she'd never touched it. The symbols glowed brighter now, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Clara raised the hammer, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. She had to end this. The hammer struck, and the stone shattered. The hum stopped. The silence was worse. Then, from the depths, a laugh, low, guttural, and utterly wrong. The darkness rose again, faster this time, and the faceless figure appeared at her side, its head tilted as if curious. Clara didn't run. She couldn't. The darkness wrapped around her, pulling her into the quarry. As she fell, she saw the figure's face change, the smooth mask splitting to reveal her mother's eyes, wide with terror, mouthing a single word. Run! But it was too late. The darkness swallowed her, and the hollow claimed its own,